Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Kuf Zayin Amud Aleph, 9 lines from the top. The Gemara continues to discuss Kiddush and Havdalah. Specifically now, the Gemara introduces the concept of Chamar Medina, the accepted, prevalent beverage of the province. The Gemara brings the following Maise, Amrei le Mar Yenuka Umar Kashisha Berei Rav Chista L'Rav Ashi. Zimna Chada Ikloi Ameimar LaAsrin. There were a time that Ameimar came and visited us in our locale, and we didn't have wine to give him. We then brought him the date beer made out of dates, and he did not make Havdalah with it. Uvos tvos means that he went to sleep hungry. Lamachar tarchana va'aisina le chamro va'avdil v'toim midi. The next day we went out of our way to get wine and brought it to him, and he made Havdalah on wine. That means he was makbid not to make Havdalah and Chamar Medina ad kedei kach that he was not going to be able to eat. He was stringent upon himself, even though technically if you don't have wine, then you're not mechuyev to make Havdalah on wine, and you can eat, and you can make Havdalah the next day. He was stringent, he was machmir on himself, and therefore he went to sleep hungry. Only the next day did he make Havdalah on the wine. Lashana su ikla la'asrin. The next year he came and he visited our locale once again. Lahavalon chamro. Aisina shichur. We again did not have wine, and we brought beer made out of dates, the classical beer. Omar, he said to us, if so, chamar medinahu, then it must be the prevalent beverage of the Medina. Avdil v'toim midi. He made Havdalah and then he ate something afterwards. In other words, he accepted the fact that the beer was the Chamar Medina, and that was acceptable to then make Havdalah with. Shma mina tlas, we can derive 3 things from this incident. Shma mina hamavdil b'tfila tzorich sheyavdil ha'kois. Even though a person does make Havdalah in the tefillah of Mariv Motzei Shabbos, he adds atachon antanu. In atachon antanu, even though he does mention Havdalah, still he has to make Havdalah once again when he comes home with the kois. Ushmamina asur lo la'odam sheyoichal koidem sheyavdil. We also can derive from here that a person cannot eat before making Havdalah. So again, even though in this incident we're saying that he was stringent, ameimar, not to eat, that's only because we said that he did not have any wine substitute, and therefore he could have then eaten. But we can derive from here that if a person does have wine, he must make Havdalah before eating. V'shmamina, and the third thing we can derive from this incident is Misha lo hivdil b'motzoi Shabbos mavdil v'holei kol haShabbos kuloi. If a person did not make Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos, so he can continue making Havdalah during the week as well. We had 2 different statements in the name of Rava what the halacha was like. Does it mean to say you can make Havdalah only until the next night, until Sunday night, or does it mean can you make until Tuesday night? Here, the prevalent opinion that is accepted is that you can make Havdalah until Tuesday night. Says the Gemara, Boy mine Rav Huna Rav Chizda. Rav Huna asked the following question to his Talmud Rav Chizda. Mahu lekadushe ashichro. Can one make kiddush on beer made out of dates, classical, regular beer? Omar, he said, Hashta, now, Uma piruzuma v'te'ene v'asne. The boy mine Rav v'Rav me Rabbi Chia v'Rabbi me Rabbi v'lo poshet. Shichra mi boy. If all of these other types of beers, that which is made out of barley, that which is made out of figs, and those beers that are made out of berries, that question was asked from Rav to Rav Chia to Rav Chia to Rebbe, and still he did not give an answer. saying that it's acceptable to make kiddush with that, then a regular pashut type of beer made out of dates, are you going to say that you can make kiddush with that? Shichra mi boy. So the Gemara says that savu mina kiddushehu deloy mekadshinan ilave aval ivdulim avdilan, that the students who witnessed this thought that that's true only by kiddush. However, by havdalah, we could make havdalah even with pashut beer, like beer from dates. Omar luhu Rav Chisda said to them, no. Hochi Amar Rav, keshem she'ein mekadshin. Alov kach ein mavdilin alav. The same way that you cannot make kiddush on date beer, so too you cannot make havdalah on date beer. There's no distinction. Itmar nam, we also have a statement that says the following: Omar Rav tachlifa bar Yimi Omar Shmuel keshem she'ein mekadshin alov kach ein mavdilin alov. So that also supports what we had just said now, that indeed one cannot make a distinction, and therefore the same way you cannot make kiddush on the date beer, so too we cannot make havdalah. Again, even though havdalah you might have thought is less severe, less stringent, nonetheless the halach is the same. Levi shadar leila Rebbe. Levi sent Rebbe the following: Shichura bart leisa megani. If you have beer that was first poured on the dates, the water was poured on the dates, then that same water was poured on fresh dates, which was then poured on fresh dates, and it happened 13 times over and again. Tamei have besim tuva. Here, he tasted it, and have besim tuva, it had a very flavorful taste. And therefore, can you make such a kiddush on such type of beer? Omar, he said, such a type of beer is fitting to make kiddush, and to also sing all the praises and shirois in the world on. The Gemara, however, tells on that night he had shilshul because of the response that the body had to such intense dates in his beer. Omar, he said, miyasur mefayes. He said, could it be that such a drink will miyaser, and then you can, miyaser means it causes pain, and then also be mefayes HaKadosh Baruch Hu through making kiddush with. So he was at a question. He wasn't sure if this is indeed something that one can make kiddush for, even though initially he was very enthusiastic to say you can make all shiros and tishbochos sheba'olam on such beer. Rav Yosef says other things that are on the negative side of beer. Edor berabim, I would make a neder berabim, that he held that one cannot nullify the lo ishti shichro, that I will not then drink shichro. He wanted so badly not to then come onto the temptation of drinking beer because of the negative effects it has. Therefore, he says, I would make a neder berabim where it cannot be nullified. Omar Rava goes on to say, Ishti mei zor yon v'lo ishti shichro. Again, he says that the regular beer made out of dates is so negative in its effect to a person. I prefer to then drink the beer made out of flax than beer made out of dates. V'omar Rava, and Rava said, Tihave shak yusei shichro mande mekadesh shichro. He said one should then be having his regular drink as shichra, as a midah keneged midah, if he's going to use shichra for his kiddush. In other words, if he's going to then take a pashitas, simple, poor type of beverage, that is the beverage of date beer, to use as his kiddush, then that should be his regular beverage. Midah keneged midah. He should not be able to afford wine. Rav Ashkechai, Rav Huna de Kaddish HaShichra. Rav found that Rav Huna made kiddush on date beer. Omar le, he said to him, Shari Abba le mikne istri mishichra. He said it must be that Abba, it's a term of chashivus that he used, and he said it must be that you are acquiring these types of istri, types of coins, meaning you're making business from wine, And that's why, since you're making money from wine, from the date beer, since you're making money from it, that's why you're making kiddush on it as well. In other words, you're saying sarcastically that it must be that you're making a lot of money with such beer that you're able to make kiddush with it. Tonu Rabbanan brings the following brisa: Ein makadshin ela al hayayin ve'ein mevarchin ela al hayayin. One cannot make kiddush only on wine, and he cannot make a bracha only on wine. Ask the Gemara, Otush hashichr v'amayim ila mevarchin on alayah. Is it so that even when it comes to date beer and water, do we not make a bracha of shehakol niyeh bidvoro? After all, you said ein mevarchin el al hayayin. Omra Abaye Abari said, Hochi ka'omar, this is what he meant to say. Ein oimrim, you should not say have kois shel bracha levarich el al hayayin. Bring me a kois of bracha, meaning on birkas hamozoin, for a kois shel bracha only if it's going to be with wine. Tonu Rabbanon ein mekachin ala sheichar. The Brisa says you cannot make kiddush on sheichar, on date beer. Mishum Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Amru bekachin. You could mekadesh on date beer because it's still a chamar medina. Now, how much do you have to drink? Says the Gemara, mat emes yayin kol shu. You should make a taste of the wine. That's enough, a kol shu, to be yotzei the kiddush. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda oimer meloy lugma. It's not enough just to taste it. You have to fill up your cheek. It has to be a cheekful in order to then be yotzei the kiddush. Omer Rav Huna, Omer Rav. Rav Huna said the name of Rav. V'chein tani Rav Gidol the ming nerish hamekadesh v'toam melolugma yotza. A person who drinks and he has at least a cheekful, which is a little bit less than a reviz. It depends on the size of the person. That will be the size of his cheekful. Then he's yotze. V'im lav lo yotza. But if not, even b'diavad he's not yotza. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok points out on this last statement that was taught in the name of Rav Gidol the mineresh, Ana tanina lo, I taught such a brisa, lo Gidol bar menashe, lo Gidol bar menyumi, ela Gidol stama. When I taught the brisa, you should know I taught, it says Gidol stam. It's not Gidol bar menashe, not Gidol bar menyumi. Ask the Gemara, what difference does it make? Lamai nafka mina. Answers the Gemara, Lemerma didei adidei. If you're going to have another kasha from a different statement than Rav Gidol, one of the Rav Gidol's made, it's not necessarily a kasha on him because maybe it was a different Rav Gidol that made the statement that you have to have a melor lugma when you drink kiddush.